the new Marvel Spider-Man cartoon. Proof once again, Spidey apparently can't be in a show by himself. You need to have multiple Spider-Man type characters in the show to keep it going. That's why I don't watch Spider-Man cartoons anymore. Before we have a look at Kid Arachnid, let's go ahead and take the tape measure. He's a bit of a unique character in the fact that the figure on his own is about 5 inches in height. But then he has a backpack that's been surgically grafted to his spine, and that takes the figure to about 6.5 inches in height. To also do some size comparisons to previously looked at Spider-Men from the new Spider-Man cartoon. There he is next to the original costume Spider-Man on the left, and the black costume variant on the right. Kid Arachnid is a little bit smaller, so I guess they said to themselves, well, instead of putting the candy floss shooter on his arm, we'll graft it on a backpack. And that backpack, sadly, is not removable. We'll move the figures out of the way here, as we've already had a look at those, and let's have a look at Kid Arachnid. Because he is smaller, I guess they had the notion that let's give him the same shooting backpack, but let's have it attached to his back and give him the web shooter as an actual appendage, something that sits on a hose, and the hose is slightly bendable, and it attaches instead to his arm. And now you have the ridiculous, looks like he wants to floss his teeth, but you press the button on the back, same gimmick applies. I ask myself this though, because the Spider-Man figure has this as an extension, it's not really part of his body, then why did he need to have this attached to his torso? It literally looks like it's been glued to his torso. I don't think any of it makes its way into the body, so why couldn't this have been something that took, you could take off completely? Like, it's all self-contained, Hasbro. It's all, I'm sending a Morse code out. Why couldn't this be separate from the figure? It makes absolutely no sense to me. And unfortunately, because it clamps its way onto Spider-Man's or Kid Arachnid's arm, it also means that you can't move his arm. If you move it down, you run the risk of bending the hose. If you move it up, well, it stops, dead stops right there. You can't seem to move any further without popping this off. It's nicely detailed, don't get me wrong, but it makes absolutely no sense why they had to keep it separate. Or at the very least, have this as a separate backpack, or just scrap the gimmick. Just give him something else. Give him a blaster that shoots like a web projectile. That would have made more sense to me. I do like the coloring of the backpack. But by no means does that mean I'm justifying why it should have been included. It does look like, if I just look at the Spider-Man on the back here, it's similar in design. Spider-Man's is a lot bigger, granted, but it is very similar, the two, between one and the other. And at the very least, it does match the colors of Kid Arachnid, although his colors are slightly darker. The face sculpt and overall body is decent enough. Web is pretty clean. Unfortunately, it just kind of abruptly stops. It's on the front of the torso, but at some point, I guess they decide, well, we don't need to put it on the back because we're going to drill this into his spine. We don't need to paint the back. So unfortunately, the webbing only starts and stops at the front. Head sculpt is pretty good. I thought there might actually be paint on there, but it's just like specks of something. He is not pre-posed, but you can see his arm is predetermined. His hands are already in a web shooting position. His other hand looks like it wants to hold something, but unfortunately it doesn't. Now I guess if you look at the other Spider-Man figures, they're basically the same idea. They have gripping hands, but they don't get anything. They don't get any accessories whatsoever. While the sculpt is pretty good, unfortunately because he is just all black, it unfortunately means that the figure's a little on the blander side. He does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. You praised this figure. Why, when it would be pretty much the same case of simply an all-black figure, with a little bit of paint. Well, I do like this one because at the very least it's got some extra webbing and stuff happening here. And overall it's a nice looking figure. Limited in posability, yes, but at the very least it's a decent enough looking figure. Kid Arachnid's not bad. He is smaller, and thereby I guess we had to add this extra nonsense on the back of him. But he's not necessarily a terrible figure. From a sculpt solely, I like him. From the web and the actual detailing on him, I do like him. I just don't think he necessarily needed to have this big backpack attached to the back of him. Articulation on this guy, his head rotates all the way around. You can actually get, not quite his head popping off, but you can actually get more of a range of motion on this guy's head than you actually could on the other Spider-Man figures. So that at least is that is something at the very least. The arms hinge back and forth, but as you could probably guess it, one hand works pretty good. The other arm stops, basically the backpack just wants to get in the way. I suppose some posability, it's cheap though. The arm on the shooting extension here can rotate back and forth as well. I guess you could have it to the side of him if you don't want to have it standing straight up. But again, it just looks absolutely ridiculous. Legs hinge back and forth. That's about all you're really going to get for it. And there is Kid Arachnid. I can't say I dislike the figure, but why oh why, for a figure this size, didn't they actually just give him something that shot a projectile instead of giving him this unnecessary backpack? With the backpack as it is on Kid Arachnid, it actually looks more like he's supposed to be fighting fires than shooting webs. It looks like he's got a big giant hose contraption, again, drilled to his spine. That's an awfully morbid thought to be thinking about, but how else would you explain a backpack that can't be removed from this figure? It's literally been housed to the spinal cord of this character. I'm surprised he even can move around. The figure doesn't look too bad, but unfortunately, because he's got the backpack on his back that you can't do anything with, he either has to be shooting the web, in which that can add some extra top heaviness to the figure, or the hose just kind of sits to the side of him, and it's completely unnecessary. I really think for, again, the figure being a smaller figure than the other two, this could have been an opportunity for Hasbro to throw in some projectile shooting weapons and not still go with the web shooting action that the other two Spider-Man that we've already looked at possesses. This figure's not bad from the looks of him, but unfortunately the gimmick just ruins it for him. The gimmick ruined the other two Spider-Man figures, but at the very least you could still do something with them, and it didn't look overly obtrusive on the other two Spider-Man. This just looks obnoxious. And obnoxious in a bad way. Not that there's ever a case where obnoxious can be in a good way, but this is obnoxious in a bad way. Today we were having a look at the Hasbro. This was the new 2017, Marvel's Spider-Man. This was Kid Arachnid. If you guys want to follow me on social media, as my turntable has now changed directions, you can either follow me or follow me on both avenues of Twitter and Facebook. That'll tell you upcoming things that are happening on this channel and stuff I'm doing behind the scenes. You can also support this channel through Patreon, which will help towards picking up new things that'll be shown on this channel. All of this as well, you make sure you subscribe because then you'll never miss a beat when it comes to future videos coming onto this channel. Thanks for watching as you always do, guys. I'll see you next time.